Everybody, Steve Siebold back with publicspeakersblog.com. Here are my 3 secrets to speaking to an empty room. Of course, now we're all speaking to empty rooms. If you're doing work on camera, which most of us are in the speaking business since there are no audiences yet since the shutdown, you have to know how to do this in a way that makes it look like the room is full of people, because it's much more engaging that way. It's easier to listen to and it's easier to watch. Luckily, 25 years ago, Bill Gove, the father of professional speaking, taught me to not only speak to an empty room and how to do it, but he encouraged me to rehearse like a professional athlete practices on the road over and over and over. And I understood that because I was a professional athlete and I understood what it was to practice all the time. Most speakers don't practice anywhere near enough. Well, he taught me to practice all the time. So when you practice, you're practicing usually when you're on a tour in a hotel room to no one, just a mirror or a window looking out or the bed or the sink or the TV or whatever. So you get very good at this after you do this for a while. It takes a while to get good. And most speakers I know can't speak to an empty room. Now they can do it, of course, but they can't do it effectively. They don't like it. They feel uncomfortable, and which basically excludes them from ever having a television show. Luckily, I had a show on TSTN for 2 years. I won the Telly Award for Best Motivational Show. I still have my Telly Award. And we spoke to, for the show, I spoke to 4 robotic cameras in a tiny room outside of Dallas. For 2 years, I did the show. And it was a half-hour show, 22 minutes, 8 minutes of commercials, 22 minutes content. And it was to an empty room full of 4 robotic cameras. The engineering booth was behind me, so I couldn't see anyone. And most of the speakers that auditioned, we had Jim Rohn on that network, we had Bob Proctor on the network, Brian Tracy, Jim Cathcart, Tony Alessandra. I mean, really great speakers. It was a phenomenal group of people. And the people that didn't pass the audition to get a show on that network, more than any other reason, what the producers told me was because they said, I can't speak to an empty room. There's no energy. There's no feedback. There's no faces. Well, guess what? You got to be able to do it in the age of shutdown. And this business is changing, of course. The shutdown is changing it because 2021 is done for live events. It's only February, but don't expect any major companies to take the risk of putting people in a room in a convention hall. Probably not going to happen until 2022. So I would strongly recommend following these 3 secrets to speaking to an empty room. Get good at it, get comfortable at it. And believe me, you do get comfortable. I've been doing this for a long time, 25 years, and you really do I'm as comfortable in front of an empty room than I am in front of a live crowd. Now, I prefer a live crowd because you do get energy back from people and you do see their facial expressions and it's much easier. But you have to be able to do it. I did a 35-hour program over 5 days about maybe 6 months ago in a TV studio to an empty room. And the program's gone all over the world, but it was an empty room. And so here are the 3 secrets, as Bill Gove taught them to me 25 years ago about speaking to an empty room. Number 1 is you have to boost your energy level higher than you normally would to a packed room or to a room full of people. Why? Because the audience feeds you energy. As you know, it feeds you energy back. It's kind of a back and forth trade-off. Well, they're not there. So you have to have enough energy for your side of the equation and their side. You need double the energy. So you need to start strong with energy. All right? That's number 1. Number 2 is you want to look around the room like this, as if you're looking at people's faces and you're talking to them as you would in a live audience, even though they're just chairs or it's just a wall or it's just a camera. You have to make it look like you're talking to people. Now, why is that? Why can't you just stare at the camera? Much harder to watch and listen to someone just staring into a camera. It's just much harder to watch. It's easier to be an observer like you are in an audience when you're just looking, the speaker's looking around and you're just one of the people in the audience, as opposed to that person just talking directly to you like I am right now into a camera. So you want to look around and make it look like there's a whole audience. Not that you're trying to fool anyone on camera, but it's just easier to watch and easier to listen to. Okay, number 3, you have to use more pauses in your speech than you normally would in a live audience. Why? Because you're basically acting as if people are taking notes or they're thinking about the last thing you just said. Now, why do you exaggerate it? Because the more you exaggerate it, the easier it is to listen to. Pauses can be difficult for speakers because to us, it's dead air. To an audience, it's a break. They can think about what you said last. They can consider your idea. They can write it down in a workbook or on paper or whatever, right? Pauses are easier for the audience, harder for the speaker if they're pretty new speakers. But the audience, for an audience, a pause is a break. Do pause more. Use more pauses when you're speaking, when you're practicing speaking to an empty room. If you take these 3 things that Bill Gove taught me, I promise you. Now, you have to practice them. You can't just use the techniques because you won't feel comfortable. Practice these things, and I guarantee you that after a period of time, it doesn't take that long. After a few months of practicing this, you'll feel just as comfortable in an empty room than you do with 10,000 people or 100 people or whatever the number is. It really is that it's kind of a funny thing. You can talk to a wall, you can talk to a bed, you can talk to a mirror, you can talk to a sink like in a hotel room or in a practice room or a studio or whatever, and no one has to be there, and you're very, very comfortable. This is a skill. In the age of no live meetings, this is a skill you want to have. It's a skill, if you have it, you'll get ahead of other speakers that don't have it. So give it a try and let me know how it works for you. Thanks for watching the blog. See you next time.